the third part is, I just want to say the church is quiet, Jeff. The church is quiet.
I think that is where now the Gen Z movement is headed to, because the politicians of the current day have used the pulpit, as a scapegoat where to hide and do many of their dirty things. We've seen now they are going to the pulpit to advance their agenda of hatred. You find politicians in Kenya stand on pulpits and exchange, unkind words, unpleasant, unprintable words on the pulpit, and you find the priesthood seated watching. Why? Because they're expecting the fat brown bags. I think for Kenya,
And they're
brown.
clapping for them.
Yes, you
Clapping
find
for
some,
them.
exactly. You find some of these preachers and clerical officers. They are celebrating. They are clapping for the so-called politician. Why? Their agenda is on the bag. They are chasing the bag. They know that after they've given the audience, then, well, rub my shoulder, I rub your shoulder. So that's what is happening. So they are after the brown envelope thing.
All right, so again, this is another moment that we come here on this platform to share our views. Especially in the recent weeks, Kenya has been experiencing a wave of demonstrations sparked by a combination of economic and political frustrations. The citizens are taking to the streets to protest against rising unemployment, the high cost of living, and widespread concern about government corruption. This protest reflects growing demand of transparency, accountability, and effective economic policies from the nation's leaders. And just I think on the other day, that was on Thursday, the President Ruto, dissolved his cabinet, and almost 90%, 95% of his cabinet, he sent them home. And there have been series of abduction. There was alleged series of abduction and killings as well, with the reason on being the Kware. Several bodies are being found from Kware, and it's quite astonishing that such things can happen in a country, a democratic country. And I remember very well President Ruto promised that there will be no extrajudicial killings in his government, and he has reiterated that will never happen under his watch. But we are seeing them. We are seeing them happening. People being found in the very bad places. Notably, in these demonstrations, young people, especially Generation Z or Gen Z, if you like, have been at the forefront of this movement, utilizing social media to mobilize, support, and share real-time updates. Their involvement underscore the vital role of youth in advocating for change and reshaping the future of the nation. In today's episode, we want to explore these issues in depth and discuss the implication for Kenya's future. My name is Chris Midamba, and I'm hosting Jeff Winston, of course, a familiar face on this podcast. Tunakwanga tu wawili, by the way.
Apparently so. Looks like we are the guys here. We are the spokespeople for the Gen Zs. I know they don't have a leader, but we can be spokespersons.
Don't say that. I don't want them to start throwing stones at us. They are leaderless, they are tribeless, and they are fearless as well.
The funny thing about Gen Zs is when you are with them, you are with them. When you try to emanate from amongst them, like you try raising your head, then they don't know you. They reject you. They disown you.
They reject you. And you remain alone.
Yes, yeah.
All right. I think it will be very fine if we start this broadcast with just reflecting on whatever is happening right now in the country. There have been some bodies found in Kware, a place in Donholm.
Yeah, Chris. You see, those are some tragic news. We've been seeing around, I think, since last evening on news, where I think yesterday 6 bodies were retrieved from that. It was an open field where they used to mine, not mine really. They used to excavate rocks for
Mm-hmm.
constructing the now outer ring road here in Embakasi. So it became an open cave, also known as a quarry. So it's been an open field, but was filled with water and also waste things, and people dump things there.
Mm-hmm.
Then the residents started seeing things that looked like bodies. When you tie a body in a gunny bag, someone can tell that's the form of a body. What drew their attention was like there were not. It was not just one, but several of those, crazy looking things. That's when, out of
Mm-hmm.
curiosity, actually, it's residents who started pulling off those bags from the quarry, and then shock on them. It turns out that they are human bodies. So there's been anger, there's been frustration. People have been so angry. The police tried to contain the situation, but they were chased away because there
Mm-hmm.
is public anger. And you're also aware that the police have been accused of illegal abductions. There are people who've died. There are people who are still missing. There are people in custody, uh, allegedly abducted by the police and the state. So the deaths that happened in the quarry right here in Embakasi, Nairobi, has fueled more of the tension, the hatred against police, and the hatred against the administration. Because right now, any bad thing which will have just been nature, people have been
It
dying, Chris.
triggers.
People have been dying. People have
Mm-hmm.
been picked in Rivayala, for example. People have been picked in Kabete Forest, in Ngong Forest. But right now, it is the
Mm-hmm.
political situation that is working against the government. Because if it were any other time, it would have been just a simple police investigation to find out who killed them. But with the
Mm-hmm.
backdrop of everything that has happened, then the prime suspect becomes the police. Um, Over the majorly the illegal abductions. And we've also had testimonies from people who are abducted previously from the protests. Some came with very
Mm-hmm.
harrowing tales, how they were really tortured, how they were frustrated. It has not been a good appearance. In Juja, I think to the same. I think it's just yesterday again, where people are demonstrating after a third year student. He's called Omondi, who had just gone for the Occupy Parliament demonstrations. He made it into Parliament last week
Mm-hmm.
on the 25th when people occupied Parliament. He made it into Parliament. He was recording his videos on Parliament, but he didn't make it back to school. So he disappeared without a trace. And I think 2 3 days before, he was found dumped in a quarry again in Juja, a place called Gashororo. So the police are really, really at pains to try to explain why these missing bodies are being found dead, being found in quarries, and being found dumped in those kind of situations, Chris.
And the shocking part, Jeff, is that these bodies are found mutilated body parts. I don't know, heads, hands, like really. And the worst part is they are stuck inside a gunny bag. That's so much inhumane. Like very, very. I don't know. It's sad to see that a country can really reach that level of I don't know. Should I call it atrocity? Or should I call it uh, what are the police calling it? I know the investigation are still going on. Are they calling it, maybe we'll call it extrajudicial killings because we are yet to know what happened to them, and it's sad. And I think after or I think the residents or the people were there, they were enraged, and right now I'm informed that they held a demonstration, walking from that area to the CBD, and the people were standing there since morning, and they have now walked to the CBD demonstrating. It's very sad. It's quite very sad, Jeff Winston.
It is very sad what is happening because in Kenya, extrajudicial killings are not something new. We've had
Mm-hmm.
cases of many cases of extrajudicial killings in this country. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, many of them go unnoticed, but many times we have human rights groups like Haki Africa, we have the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, and many other groups in Kenya that follow these extrajudicial killings. We saw yesterday the director of public prosecution in Kenya, Renson Igonga. He ordered the police to investigate the cases of extrajudicial killing, particularly at the Kware dam site in Mukuru Kwanjenge in Nairobi here, the Director of Prosecutions, he gave out a statement ordering the DCI to probe onto those killings to find out if these are homicides, if these are activities of illegal people, or they are a case of extrajudicial killing by the police. Remember, the Kenyan police has a history of extrajudicial killing. Previously, during the regime of the former president, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, the government was accused adversely of extrajudicial killings, and particularly Rivayala was really mentioned,
Well known for that.
well
Yeah.
known for dumping bodies of extrajudicial killings. In 2023,
Mm.
I'm looking at the report from Amnesty International Kenya. They reported a total of 136 extrajudicial killing cases in Kenya.
Whoa.
And then I'm also seeing from their report, out of these 136, only 28 cases were subjected to
Mm.
judicial proceedings, meaning they were followed up. Somebody went to the authorities to follow up these cases. So you can imagine, out of 136, only 28, they are followed up. That's a paltry. Can almost say is almost like 15 to 20% of these cases. So many of them go unreported. Many of them it's just a dead end because nobody takes
Hmm.
effort to follow you. We know the Kenyan judicial wheels are very slow; they turn very slowly. So many families
Yeah.
just give up and mourn their loved ones and go. But the government of Kenya has been at pains to explain to citizens why extrajudicial killings still occur. Remember the press statement given by the deputy president not many weeks ago from Mombasa. He's still blaming
Hmm.
the government for bringing back extrajudicial killing, but the president has insisted there's no extrajudicial killing. So
Yeah.
extrajudicial killing is a stain that still stains this government, still stains the National Police Service of Kenya, and
Hmm.
this country by extension, Chris.
Yeah. It's quite. You know, we don't even know what to say. I can imagine the pains that the family members are going through. Those who have lost their loved ones, in that. These are very troubling instances. The reports of extrajudicial killings and abductions, bodies being found in various parts of the country, and right now in Kware, raising alarm and calls for urgent investigations. And the third part is, I just want to say, the church is quiet, Jeff. The church is quiet.
I think that is where now the Gen Z movement is headed to.
Hmm.
Right now, they have really taken the attention of the national government, the president, the members of parliament are right now feeling the heat. Um, the cabinet has gone. I know we'll talk about that at a later stage, but they're feeling the heat of the Gen Zs. But now the
Hmm.
Gen Zs are turning their attention on the pulpit. Why? Because the politicians of the current day have used the pulpit, as a scapegoat where to hide and do many of their dirty things. We've seen now they are
Hmm.
going to the pulpit to advance their agenda of hatred. You find politicians in Kenya stand on pulpits and exchange, unkind words, unpleasant, unprintable words on the pulpit, and you
Hmm.
find the priesthood seated watching. Why? Because they're expecting the fat brown bags. I think for Kenya,
And they're
brown.
clapping for them,
Yes, and you
clapping
find
for
some
them.
exactly. You find some of these preachers and clerical officers. They are celebrating. They are clapping for the so-called politician. Why? Their agenda is on the bag. They are chasing the bag. They know that after they've given the audience, then well, rub my shoulder, I rub your shoulder. So that's what is happening. So they are after the brown envelope thing. And in Kenya, brown envelope economy is big. And right now it's happening big in the current government. And we've seen the NCC also raising that as an issue because most of this money that is being flaunted in the open public,
Hmm.
rubbing it on the faces of impoverished Kenyans, people who are hurting, people who can't afford a daily meal, people living on less than $1 a day, which is the
Hmm.
basic line for poverty levels globally, according to IMF and the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. Anybody who lives below $1 a month a day is considered poor. So we find even many
Hmm.
Kenyans cannot afford, the basic $1 a day because things are tough. But you find politicians, they are buying helicopters. Somebody's salary does not allow them to afford a helicopter, but they own a helicopter, they have helipads, they have a fleet of expensive vehicles and guzzlers at that. But their salary does not
Mm,
match up to the kind of things that they have. So, Chris, the church is right now under serious scrutiny. We've seen Gen Zs also
mm,
sometimes going down and shutting down politicians from speaking completely. We saw a church in Mombasa that had to cancel a visit by the First Lady because the Gen Zs had threatened to go occupy that church if they had given space for the First Lady. So the church is
mm,
under serious scrutiny to speak up against injustice, to take its rightful position. Remember, even in the Bible, it was the
mm.
church that will correct the kings in Israel. For example, when King David was wrong, then we saw Nathan who was
Yeah.
going to correct David. We saw during the days of
Mm,
Ahab, when Ahab was wrong, they will send to him Elijah, who will correct him and rectify, stamp the authority of the church in the management of the
mm,
country. From past history moving forward. Fast forward to Kenya, for example, we remember people like Reverend Timothy Njoya, who will stand up and not tolerate the injustices of Moi regime. And Timothy
mm.
Joya really suffered in Kenya, for example, for him to speak against the excesses of the government. We have people like Desmond Tutu in South Africa. Desmond Tutu he's not acclaimed globally. He even got Nobel Peace Prize for
Yeah,
his
Nobel Prize.
advocacy.
Yep.
Yes, for his advocacy against apartheid and regime of oppression in South Africa. So the church, we cannot forget Marcus Garvey. We cannot forget Martin Luther King Jr. And these are vocal
Mm,
voices that have come from the pulpit and have brought change in the society because they have the audience, they have the
mm.
masses, and people take the pulpit as a very serious position, which can give direction and correction to the government. Chris.
Wow. And just not to turn our focus to, I know we are still talking about these the happenings that are currently going on in Kenya, the bodies being found in Quarry, and now that the Inspector General of Police, the former, if I can say so, Japheth Koome resigned, and at the time Koome was resigning, it was just coming some after weeks of several protests that saw over almost 40 people losing their lives, Jeff. And right now, we still don't know what are the causes of what caused the death of these people who have been found in the quarry. But do you think Kome succumbed to the pressure and then decided to resign, or do you think he was kicked out? Your
Pressure
opinion.
creases. Pressure creases. It's not
Pressure
increasing. It's not
creases.
decreasing. It is increasing. But you see again,
Mhm,
Chris, as much as the
mhm,
pressure is increasing, it's a win for the Gen Zs. They're demanded for the resignation of Japhet Koome. But
mhm,
Jeff Kome is not new to controversy. He's always been there having controversies in day out. During the Azimio
mhm,
demonstrations last year, he was at the heart of the blame from the Azimio brigade. Remember when police officers in Nairobi, for example, they shot. You remember the clip when they were shooting live tear gas in a journalist's car? Again, was in Kwale.
mhm.
Yeah? The Inspector
Yeah,
General of Police was asked, he said, but why were the journalists walking in a convoy of demonstrators, which really was
you
not
can
right.
imagine.
Yeah, it's so disheartening because these were people doing their
Mhm,
work. The journalists and the press are allowed to do coverage independently, without intimidation and with transparency. But this was an obvious act of intimidation to the independence of the journalists. We saw how the police officer was shooting live in tear gas inside somebody's car. That is really inhumane. And then the Inspector General of Police came out, he was not apologetic about it. And at one point, the Azimio guys threatened to take him to the ICC. He came out boldly and said, "Take me. I'm ready. Write more letters. I will continue.
mhm.
I'll continue with my work." At one point again, it took away the security for the Azimio leaders who were demonstrating. He withdrew their security, and then when questioned again by the press, he said, "These are illegal. These are goons. These are criminals. Why would I protect criminals? They are throwing at us stones. Let them protect themselves with stones." So again, he
Mm.
withdrew security from the Azimio leaders, which again brought outrage. Their photos, go online, you'll find Japhet Koome in some photos, throwing stones at protesters. I don't know if you've seen that photo somewhere. Just Google it. You'll see Japhet Koome throwing stones on the
Yeah,
streets.
I saw that. Yeah.
So this guy is not new to controversy. But for this latest one, again, it's a complex situation. Why? Either he was forced to bow out due to pressure, or he himself decided to resign. For the different scenarios, number one, he can bow out of pressure. Why? Because he's feeling intense pressure from Gen Zs, from the government, from every different quarters. Chinua Achebe once said that he's only a foolish housefly that follows the corpse to the grave. I want to use William Ruto as the corpse in this instance. We can clearly see that it is becoming too tough for the president. It looks like everything is crumbling for him. So Koome, in his act of resignation, maybe you see that things are going south. If I remain IG, I can easily be prosecuted with this guy. If he goes south, let him go alone. So you jump the ship and leave him alone. On the other aspect, for him to leave is also to protect himself in case prosecution is open. Now he can't be prosecuted because he's no longer the Inspector General of the police. You cannot prosecute him as a private citizen because those things acted while in office. So another way of protecting himself is by resigning. So if investigations happen, he's no longer there because now we have, for example, the quarry killings that are happening right now. The young man from JKUAT who died in the quarry again in Kashororo. The many 40 plus protesters who died during the Gen Z demonstrations. Businesses were destroyed as police officers were watching in a way that looked like these demolitions by goons were sponsored by the state, aided by the police. Because you'll find some businesses were robbed for more than 3 hours plus. There's no police officer appearing. So you find Koome may
Yeah.
also decide to pull out so that he doesn't face prosecution for activities that happened under his watch. Remember, the buck stops with the Inspector General of Police. In
But
as much as
yeah, just a moment.
in as
Don't you think that
in as much
there
as
should
the
be a
General of Police is responsible for the police, remember there are also police officers who've been captured on camera, for example, shooting live at protesters. Remember the police officer who shot Rex, he was recorded on CCTV. So there are also these atrocities that have happened under his watch that threaten his well-being, his stature as the Inspector General of Police, and blot his image and reputation, Chris.
But don't you think if the former Inspector General of Police, Japhet Koome, and Nordin Haji had carried out their work accordingly, properly, in other words, then we wouldn't be discussing, the retrieving of bodies at Kware, for example. Don't you think they should be held accountable to some
Um,
extent?
I think majorly the blame lies on the Inspector General of Police. I know the Deputy President has blamed Nordin Haji on the other side. I'll also come to that. But on the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Koome, he's been blamed adversely for poor management of protests and demonstrations in the country. Remember, even Sunday last week in Kenya here, the Gen Zs had a peaceful concert in Uhuru Park, Nairobi, right here. And it was very peaceful. After their concert at Uhuru Park, they walked from Uhuru Park into the Moi Avenue, into Kenyatta Avenue, all the way to Ronangala Street, all the way to Haile Selassie. Then everybody boarded their bus going home. So most of Kenyan protests are peaceful until the police appear. So it is the police who many times who provoke innocent citizens who are just demonstrating their rights, which are enshrined and protected by the Constitution. So the Inspector General of the Police, Mr. Koome, is facing serious backlash because of his poor management of peaceful protests. Remember, at the start of this protest, like 2-3 weeks ago, they have been generally peaceful. Uh, of course, they even acknowledge the Gen Zs who are only working with iPhones and Ubers and cabs, which are tools of peace, and they'll just come with their phones. And at one point they were having flags, and at another point they're only having masks, and a black T-shirt. That's all they came with. But we saw how the police, under the instructions of the Inspector General of the Police, will use excessive force, to contain the protesters. The role of the police is to protect protesters as they are doing their demonstrations, protect them from aggressive or people who may want to attack them. You look at developed countries like the US. We see protesters even walk towards the gates of the White House. No, make noise, go home. People walk through
Yeah.
number 10 Downing Street in the UK, shout
Mm-hmm.
all the while, then they go home, and the police are there to protect them as long as the demonstrators are not posing a threat to these state functions or offices. But you see, in Kenya, it is Koome and his cabal of friends that provoke protesters. People are peaceful, only carrying iPhones. You are spraying them with water cannons. You are throwing tear gas at them. You are lobbing rubber bullets at them. What do you expect? Then the anger in people increases. Once the anger is agitated, then we see the back push from the protesters, and then protest gets chaotic. So the Inspector General of Police, number one, he has failed demonstrators. In as much as he was doing his duty, he has failed demonstrators because he's supposed to protect them, not
Mm-hmm.
to harm them, not to kill them. For NIS and Mr. Nurdin Haji again, he has failed the citizens of this country. Why? These demolitions of businesses, burning of houses, killing of people. As NIS, they should have been aware that there are politicians who are sponsoring goods, because these are well funded and organized cartels of people. The last
Mm-hmm.
demonstration, we saw caskets coming inside CBD in a lorry. Remember, the police had
Yeah.
manned all the roads into the city. They were all blocked and there were police roadblocks. How did a whole lorry full of coffins enter the CBD? Of course, later we saw them removing them. Same police load them into the vehicle and take them back.
Mm.
If these were illegal people, that lorry had a license plate. We can easily track it, find the owner of that
Yeah.
lorry,
Mm.
arrest him, and find where he got the coffin. We've not seen the arrest of the owner of that lorry. So all these things are state sponsored. Then Nurdin Haji should be aware. Should have warned the police if it is supposedly done by goons. Then he should have given police prior information that there are people planning goonish activities to come, destroy town. It is very sad, Chris. For example, I attended a memorial service. I think it's on Wednesday, on Thursday this week, for some of the business traders in Nairobi here, in a building called Sunbeam, found along
Mm.
Mfangano Street in Nairobi here. Sunbeam
Mm.
building was burnt down from ground to the last floor of that building, and people were locked inside that building and were burnt alive. And if Nordin Haji had done his job, then they would have known there are such ill intents that were trying to infiltrate the demos by the Gen Zs. Nairobi
Mm.
alone, almost every other supermarket along Ronald Ngala Street was looted. Naivas, Quickmart, and many other businesses along Ronald Ngala Street, for example. Moy Avenue, the businesses were looted like no one's business, and police did nothing to stop them, except releasing CCTV footages from those business owners. So Nordin Haji, Koome, they've done this country a great disservice, Chris.
They've done this country a great disservice. Actually, this is a long conversation that probably might not be able to finish. We just want to shift to another gear here. On Thursday, President Ruto, who is right now under fire, dismissed all his cabinet, 90%, and left only the cabinet, the prime cabinet, and I think the minister for foreign affairs, something like that. Jeff, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, you're very right.
Yes, and also dismissed or fired his attorney general. Uh, following the recent, I don't know, probably maybe the recent demonstrations and protests led to that. We have seen some of the successes of the demonstration, like the withdrawal of the finance bill, probably the dismissal of the cabinet secretaries also was as a result of that. And the president said that the move came after reflection, listening to Kenyans, and after holistic appraisal of the cabinet. And they said they will now consult widely in order to set up a broad-based government. But Jeff, I want your opinion first. I know we're going to discuss briefly about the cabinet, but why Attorney General? Because in the dailies we saw Attorney General. I don't know whether it was his words. He's saying blame Ruto.
You know, before we get to the cabinet, there are two conspicuous names in that cabinet that Ruto fired. Number one is the the Attorney General Justin Bidan Muturi.
Mm.
But the name Justin Bidan Muturi is not new with Gen Z's protests. Remember, his son was abducted not many days ago for
Mm.
supporting the Gen Z's protest. So I don't know
Mm.
if maybe by extension the dad was also supporting the Gen Z's movement. So I don't know if that is. I'm speculating. I don't have the facts.
Chini ya maji.
Chini ya maji, yeah, chini ya maji. Probably. This is the Attorney General of the nation of Kenya. Then you find his son is supporting Gen Z movement, and then they abduct the son of the Attorney General of the nation of Kenya.
The audacity.
The audacity, no. But again,
Yeah.
it is the awe in the audacity that they
Yeah.
did that caught the
Mm.
attention of people. But again, on like a day ago,
Mm.
the AG Muturi again on Kenyan dailies, he was quoted saying, "Blame everything on Ruto."
Yeah.
He was misadvised. So
Actually,
again,
it was earlier that day. Then in the evening, then they
oh
were
yeah, it
dismissed.
was it was hours before he was fired. I remember. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was hour before he was fired, and then he was
Probably,
complaining.
probably it was a day before because the dailies are always printed maybe probably in the night or early in the morning before they're
Yeah,
distributed. Yeah.
you can say so because the Attorney General has on many occasions appeared to distance himself from some of the laws and the policies the president has made. For example, when he
Mm.
appeared before the Public Works Committee to deliberate on the affordable housing bill, he distanced himself
Mm.
that he didn't advise the president on that. Yesterday, we saw the courts in Kenya. They declared the Social Health Insurance Fund (SIH)
Yeah.
whatever. They
Hmm.
declared it unconstitutional and illegal.
Unconstitutional. Yep.
Yeah, so you see, the president is finding himself doing a lot of unconstitutional things. The affordable housing
Mm.
scheme itself was also declared unconstitutional. And then the housing levy was declared unconstitutional by the high courts again. So
Mm.
the attorney. I wish the late Justice David Majanja was alive. I will be sitting. I think probably wherever he is, he's looking down and like this country never ends its drama because the president
Mm.
is doing unconstitutional things every other day, and the courts find him, breaking the law, and he's adamant and continues with his pet projects despite them being
Mm.
declared unconstitutional. So we've seen Justin Bidan Muturi, coming severally distancing himself from the decisions of the president. So we see as where the state law office looks alienated from the government when the state law office should be part and parcel of the government to
Mm.
instruct the government to do the right thing, to the constitutional thing, and to work within the law. It's so embarrassing for the head of state to be always finding himself, in the courts and with doing illegality. Can you imagine if you're having a president doing illegal things? It reminds me of Trump,
Mm.
who is having a lot of illegal cases every other day. So our president is now looking like more of an African Trump with his, illegal things and constitutional things. But you see, away from Bidan Muturi, ask yourself why
Mm.
was Prime Cabinet Secretary Mudavadi spared?
Is it because maybe of the political thing? And of course, we understand that office allegedly is not constitutional. It's against the
Unconstitutional is the word.
constitution. Yeah, and I really don't know. Probably is it? I remember that saying from who is it? Lee someone that these are political cousins.
Yes, this is just simple. Political causes they are joined at the hip. He says they are joined by the hip. But you see, the Gen
Mm.
Zs had demanded disbandment of unconstitutional offices like the CASS, the PCS,
Mm.
Prime Cabinet Secretary. They had demanded the abolishment of funding of the offices of the First Lady, the Second Lady. I don't know if the wife of the Prime Cabinet is called the Third Lady. I don't know what she's called, but she has an office with a budget.
Mm.
So these were some of the demands by the Gen Zs. They wanted the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary scrapped off. But again, as much as Ruto dismissed the cabinet, he left us an egg on the face by retaining the Prime Cabinet Secretary. But Chris, again, on the flip
Mm.
side, it's important to notice that Mudavadi staying behind is a serious political stroke, is a serious political move. Why? somebody feels threatened in that entire government matrix, it is the deputy president who is supposed to
Mm.
step in the roles when, for example, the cabinet is missing. He's supposed to
Yeah.
step in to organize we have 51 permanent secretaries that are holding the different what do we call them, the different ministries at the moment. The person who's
Mm.
supposed to be coordinating them is the deputy president. But the president, in a clever way, in a subtle way, retained Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi to have him coordinate the ministry. Actually, by extension, is the one in charge of all the ministries, which something which our
The
truthful,
deputy
honest
president should
men.
do.
No. He's called the truthful, honest men.
Mm.
Those are the roles of the truthful, honest men that he should be doing. But you see, the
Mm.
president decided to retain Papa, not Papa Aroma, is whatever his name is. We call him nowadays Tom and Jerry. I don't know if it's Tom or Jerry. Nowadays we call him
I've
Gen
been
Z.
seeing some.
Not
Yeah,
the,
I've been seeing some memes that how Willy Wakishiba too. I don't know who they're referring to, but
how are we? I also don't know, but they are Willy.
Mm.
So right now he has retained PCS Mudavadi to coordinate the permanent secretaries who are remaining to oversee the mandate of the
Mm.
different ministries. Right now, they don't have a cabinet secretary, so it's the permanent secretaries that are in charge. I think there are 51 in number. So, again, you see Mudavadi being elevated very high above the deputy president. Something again we saw with Uhuru's regime, where the deputy president was alienated, and we had Matiangi being a super. It was more like a super cabinet secretary with more powers than the deputy president.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're just seeing a repeat of the same script. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
if you watch news again when they were signing the IBC Act or bill at KICC, we also saw the body language of the deputy president. He looked dissatisfied, he looked angry, disinterested. Everything was,
Yeah.
his body language was
Out of
just
place.
off.
Like
It
he
was
was
out.
not there.
Yes, the government now looks more of Ruto, PCS, Mudavadi, and of course the new kid in the block, Raila, who also, will be subject to a discussion at some point. Now he's also joined the camaraderie, and now they are calling it broad-based government. What is broad-based government? Is it a new coalition government? Is it a government of national unity? Is it what we call a government of convenience? So it's, they are calling it broad-based government, but what really is this broad-based government? Is it a government of convenience to accommodate
Mm-hmm.
political orphans, to accommodate orphans? For example, Joe is a political orphan. He was supposed to be Land's cabinet secretary. We don't know if he's going to get the job. I've seen him the last 2-3 weeks. He's attending every other press conference. All of a sudden, he's just appeared. He's attending press.
Yeah.
This.
Political orphans, eh?
Yeah, these political orphans are suddenly emerging from the darkness and from oblivion back into the scene. So, back to my point on Prime Cabinet Secretary Mudavadi, it is a strategic move for the president to retain him at this time. Of course, to quell the
Mm-hmm.
tension between him, the president, and the deputy. We know they have is not confirmed, but body
Mm-hmm.
language will tell you that the two are not seeing eye to eye. They don't have a friendly working relations. Even for the president to put a prime cabinet secretary as a minister of foreign affairs, the implications. You may not know. Let me help you. The cabinet secretary for foreign affairs sits
Mm-hmm.
in the National Intelligence and Security Council, which is the top organ of the country, which gets all the intel, gets all the security.
Intelligence, yeah.
Yes, the intelligence that the president gets, the deputy president gets, the cabinet secretary for foreign affairs, the cabinet secretary for security, the cabinet secretary for defense, the cabinet secretary for internal government, Kindiki. So is those
Mm-hmm.
those are four critical organs of the national government: defense, interior government and coordination, foreign affairs, and then
Mm-hmm.
which other ones I forget? The deputy president. So even for President Ruto to give PCS Mudavadi that position as the one in charge of foreign affairs, then was a strategic move to ensure that
Mm-hmm.
that guy is close to the heart of the presidency. because it's just a heartbeat away. The same intel that is given to Ruto, Mudavadi will access it. And some of the instances, you can almost tell that Gachagua does not get some of these things because he's considered a noisy hornbill. So it's a slow way of, it's a
They may
slow way
shout it
of,
everywhere.
I mean, he shouted everything like, this government, I'm a truthful and honest man, let me tell you. So that's why you find for Mudavadi right now, his career is rising, and is seen as seen as a close confidante of the president. The president trusts him. But again, give it up for Mudavadi. Mudavadi has been in public service and administration for very many years. Since when he was very young, he's been there. We've seen Mudavadi over the years. He looks like a conciliatory leader. He's not the kind of leader who has been on news, for example, exchanging words, abusing people. We've not seen Mudavadi in several scandals. We've not seen him in confrontation. So he looks more of a conciliatory leader, an amicable leader. So I think the president finds some comfort in him, his approach. He's not abrasive. He does not, scratch people, hit people on the shoulder. So he's not that kind of leader who has many enemies, again, to say, because of his type of politics. He's a calm guy. He's composed, and then of course with his experience in government, administration, and leadership, I think he also has experience in foreign affairs, diplomacy, and of course finance. There's a time he was a finance minister in
Yeah,
Kenya.
this time I was finance minister, yep.
Yes, there's a time he was a deputy prime minister in this country. So Mudavadi
And
is.
also deputy president. I think the time he was a deputy president as well.
This the time he was deputy president for, was it? Let me confirm. It was around few months. You know, even
Yeah,
like
for some few months. Yeah.
so. So Musalia Mudavadi is, you can call him the cat of the cat with 9 lives.
Yes, Mudavadi, let me just check. Mudavadi was deputy prime minister 2008, 2012. How is that? I was reading somewhere here.
We didn't have a deputy
Uh,
president. We didn't have a deputy
oh,
president.
we had vice president, yep.
We had vice president. The deputy president came with the new constitution.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there's a difference between deputy and vice.
Yep.
The deputy is elected with the president, so the president cannot fire the deputy. The vice was appointed by the president, so the vice president was at the sole discretion of the president. If, for example, the previous regime, the way they were not seeing eye to eye, Ruto would have been fired by Uhuru Kenyatta, but because he was a deputy president, he couldn't be fired because he was elected. So deputy presidents are elected with the president. That is why the constitution brought the office of the deputy president to protect us from situations of such kind of where, in fact, Kenya, we have almost a history of 11 vice presidents with 5 presidents.
Yeah, yeah. Mudavadi was once
Muda-
vice president, 2002.
Mudavadi is Mudavadi the 7th. He was the 7th VP. He was the
Political
7th.
cousins.
So these guys are political cousins. They share the same root. So we know them. So again, just back to my point, Ruto, I think, feels safe with Mudavadi, with his vast experience in administration, and again, his temperament. He's composed, he's cool, he's relaxed, and he does not throw words aimlessly. We've not seen him in so much confrontation with other politicians, and of course, he's very composed. We've seen even the wife. I think she's called Tessie. She's also a very quiet lady, very composed. Not like our first lady. Sorry to say, I hear they call her pregnantis. I've not called her. I hear they call her pregnantis. Back to you.
Oh, I tell you. Anyway, we're moving on in this discussion. Hosting Jeff Winston. Today we are just taking it. Is it reflecting on what has been happening in the country, our country, Kenya, and the many numbers of people who have been killed or have been found dead. So far, the demonstration that has rocked the country and the disbandment of the cabinet, and also the IG Kome resigning. Now, Jeff, I don't know. Maybe I should have asked this question later. But what lesson can other countries learn from Kenya's current political and social climate?
I think the biggest lesson that Kenya is living for all leaders globally is that a leader must be somebody who listens to the
Hmm.
people. A leader must be somebody who is connected to the grassroots. I think for William Ruto, what is killing him is his own words, because he came into this government calling himself a president of Mamamboga, a president of Boda Boda, a president of Wananchi. And he used to get catchy phrases, Fuliza, there was CRB,
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
wanaongeza ushuru, hii serikali ya kuongeza ushuru, unaona, tutapanga serikali
Tunatenga.
ya tutatenga mabilioni. There are words in Kenya we used to describe Ruto. I can give you a few. Anaitwa bwana
Hmm.
kutenga, bwana kupanga mikakati, tunawaelewa, tumewasikia, those kind of catchy phrases that he used to use. So he's suffering the consequences of his own words.
Hmm.
So I think for other leaders globally, this is a learning curve. They should learn from that. This generation is not the Gen Z generation is not like the previous Gen Zs. They see things differently. They are determined on accountability. If you promise them something, they are keen to follow up on everything you promise them to do. They are
Hmm.
not like the previous generations who say serikali inakuanga hivyo, watakuja wataenda. You see many this generation.
Yeah, like they were comfortable with whatever thing they were going through.
Yes, this like these other generations will be like, hata Moi alikufa alienda, hata hao watakufa
Hmm.
wataenda. So those are the consolation that the previous generations will do. But the Gen Z generation are a generation that are determined to hold people accountable. And
Hmm.
transparency for them is very key, because they are very much aware, they are educated, they have access to information, they have access to the internet, the social media, and many these other aspects. I've seen Nigeria youth have given their government a notice for Gen Z protests. I've seen the youth in Ghana have given the government in Ghana a notice for youth demonstrations. Uganda, that's a hoax. I will also see they're trying to say they want Gen Z. That's a hoax. They let them not try. They won't even go far. But again,
But they're coming. They're coming.
okay, maybe they come and do the demonstration in Kenya in the morning, then go back to Uganda in the evening. That will work.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Maybe.
M7 won't allow them in the streets of Kampala. He won't allow them in the streets of Ginger. And if it happens, then it will be very bloody, because that guy is oppressive, is dictatorial, and is inhumane. So for Uganda, it's a bit tricky for them. I'll pity them if they try. But again, it's also said that good things don't come easy. It takes blood, it takes sacrifice. Even for us, the Gen Zs, we have almost 40 people who've sacrificed their lives for Ruto to withdraw the finance bill, for the cabinet to go home, for the IG to resign. So it costs blood. But I really fear for Ugandans, really, because we know the history of the Ugandan military and police when it comes to opposition. We remember
Yeah.
Nigeria, the SARS, I think it was called SARS, the SARS protest in, I think that was 2013, when the youths in Nigeria again stood up to protest against the government in Nigeria. I think that was in 2020, 2021, when we had the SARS protest, SARS, which was also bloody, and many Nigerian youths lost their lives. So I think governments globally right now can read the mood from Kenya and see that that clause that is found in the constitution, which says "we the people."
With the people.
I saw.
May
I,
shall.
I wanted to come to that guy. I wanted to come to that guy. It is vested upon the people, and then they may, shall. So this power, it's vested on the people, and it is them
Yeah.
who chooses who to trust and to assign that responsibility. And so they are able to take back that power when they want to. So politicians right now need to be aware that number one, power is transient. It's not there forever. It is not a right. It's a responsibility and a privilege given by the people, and they can take it back. So the governments need to listen to their people, need to be
Yeah.
alive to reality. Because I think for our president at the moment, he's not alive to reality. He's been traveling a lot, that he forgot to about his country. Maybe he's giving us policies at work in those countries he goes to. But if he was around, but I thank Gen Zs. I think it's 1 month our president has not traveled. Wow, that particular.
Yeah.
Our president has not traveled. I think he's now homesick. Oh, this guy has not traveled for a whole month. Cabinet secretaries fired aside. Zakayo has not flown. Is it flown or flew or flight? He has not flight for a whole month. Yeah. Oh God.
uh,
This guy will take breakfast in Paris, lunch in Germany, supper
mm.
in another country. The guy has not gone anywhere for a whole month. Aye. Gen Zs niwavulia kofia. So governments need to listen to the people
To the
and
people.
be responsive to the needs of the people. But again, Chris, I also want to empathize with our President Ruto because he really means well. Trust me. I don't support many of the things that he do, but he really means well for our country, particularly on the issue of the public debt in Kenya. Our public debt ceiling, I think, in 2023 was at around 9 trillion or 8 trillion. Our debt ceiling was capped at 10 trillion, I think, by 20 before the government of President Uhuru left. So our debt ceiling was capped by the constitution at 10 trillion shillings. That had to be reviewed by the parliament in 2023 to raise the debt ceiling to 11 trillion to accommodate our rising public debt. So as of 2023, we had accumulated a total of 82.1 billion US dollars public debt in the country. So President Ruto is suffering mistakes of anyway, he was in that government anyway. He's suffering mistakes of the previous government, which he was part of. These things he's trying to correct today. He could have corrected them then as a deputy president because he's the principal advisor to the president. So he could have corrected them then before we got into this kind of
Quagmire.
quagmire that we are in. The Kenyan GDP, we take 70% of our national GDP to pay for public debt and wage bill and remuneration. So we only have like 30% of our GDP for development, for any other thing that the government wants to do. So the government doesn't have money because of public debt and the rising wage bill occasioned by the big ballooned public service in the country. Of course, public service
And also
also
all this is a result of corruption as well. And
all these
flaunting of
results.
money in everywhere.
Yes, the Auditor General of the Auditor General of the government of Kenya released a report just this week. They are saying they cannot account for almost 3 billion shillings
You
of
can
money
imagine.
that was set aside for development, and that is not in the previous regime. It is this government, not something that is far off. So there is a lot of
Very
corruption and
sad.
wasteful spending. Remember, in the finance bill, um, there was a clause for what we call hidden budget in the office of the president. There's another clause for hidden budget in the office of the deputy president. There was a budget to buy the deputy president curtains. There was a budget to buy the deputy president cars. Which cars? The guys buy cars every other day. So we are having a wasteful government, corruption that is budgeted for, and corruption that is continuously and deeply embedded in the fabric of our government. Can you imagine a whole 1 trillion shillings cannot be accountable by the office of the Auditor General? It is sad
Very sad.
and
Very
heartbreaking.
sad. It is our time to eat now, did you say so? Maybe it's our time to eat now. We waited for this for long. It's now our time to eat. But anyway, maybe I should ask this question. But before that, Or rather, let me just ask you: how can the government? Do you think, or rather, how do you think the government has addressed with the disbandment of the cabinet and the resigning of IG Koome and probably other measures that President Ruto has taken, the suspending, rather withdrawing of the finance bill? Do you think the government has addressed the root cause of the unrest and prevent it, or will prevent similar situation in the future? I know the situation seems not even to be near the middle to end, but do you think in any way it has been addressed?
I think for the Gen Zs is a big win because
Mm,
Ruto is slowly responding to the demands of the Gen Zs.
mm,
So he's heading in the right direction because one of the demands was disbandment of the entire cabinet. Remember, this cabinet was full of people with integrity issues, with a lot of moral issues. There's one of the cabinet secretaries who had rape cases in court. There's one of the cabinet secretaries who was one time found in a woman's bed in an hotel. Then he said he had forgotten his room number and ended up in a woman's bed. There's a cabinet secretary who was accused of murder during campaigns during the last general elections. She was cleared by the ODPP, which again has been an issue why most of these cabinet secretaries were cleared by the ODPP few weeks to their admission into the cabinet. So this cabinet had integrity issues. They had criminal
mm,
records. They had performance issues. There's a cabinet secretary, for example, who had a slippery tongue. He will easily spew words on. Really, he likes tweeting anything will go tweet. I even saw
I
when
know
they were
him.
fired. I also know him. When they were fired, he also sent a tweet about who he pities most about the firing. So we had such kind of people. We also had cabinet secretaries who were flaunting a lot of wealth publicly, opulence. One was asked the value of his watch. He said his watch is 900,000. His necktie was
Mm,
20,000. His belt was 50,000. One man watching with one more than 1.5 million clothing alone on a single day. So we had a cabinet secretary, they had a
mm,
cabinet that was made of people who are not fit to occupy office. So the president is in the right direction. Of course, he disbanded the office of the cabinet administrative secretaries, the CASs, which was
mm,
declared unconstitutional, which was another way where the government was wasting funds, paying for unconstitutional officers in a wasteful manner. Remember, we still have 51 permanent secretaries who are also well paid, well remunerated, and have a lot of hefty allowances. So the government has many wasteful avenues of spending inappropriately public funds. Remember, the United States
mm,
of America has to close to 400 million people, and they only have 15 cabinet secretaries. In Kenya, we have 47 million people with 25 cabinet secretaries. I don't know if
mm.
it's not even
We are
25.
we are overrepresented, and leave
We
alone
are
the cabinet secretaries. Look at the MPs. What is the role for the women rep position? I don't know. There's so many.
let
You
me
know.
help you. You know, do you know Cleophas Malala is a member of the cabinet of Kenya,
Mm,
and he gets the privileges and the powers. Sorry to mention names, but he's a member of the cabinet of Kenya with the same salary as a cabinet secretary.
mm,
His car flies the Kenyan flag. He has the privileges, the remuneration, the compensation, the allowances of a cabinet secretary. So it's a man eat man society. Like the regime that comes and says it's our time to eat, boy, let's eat. So everybody wants to eat from the national cake. The cake is growing smaller and smaller and smaller every other day. At the moment, we are not
mm,
eating the national cake. We are borrowing neighbors' cakes and eating the neighbors' cake on credit. Who pays for that cake? It is the Kenyan taxpayer who will have to foot the bill to pay for that neighbor's cake. Because that is what we are surviving on right now. We don't have our own cake. Everybody ate it. We only remain with muscles and nothing is remaining on the
mm,
national table. So actually we are scrambling for the neighbor's cake. That is where we are in. So it's wasteful,
mm,
and I'm praying that when you come back, we come back with a lean cabinet. If US
mm.
can survive with 15 cabinet secretaries, Kenya can manage even with 10. Some of these,
Yeah,
some of these
but
ministries are overlapping. We
but
have a
they will
minister for
try.
environment.
They'll try to still to make it the same number in a way. It's like paying back the whatever. I'm very sure. For example, the cabinet, the former cabinet secretaries, those who are sent home. You saw the huge packs that they're carrying with them.
77 million. The Kenyan taxpayer has to pay them 77 million shillings
Yeah,
to send them home.
I
So that alone
really,
is another wasteful spending.
yeah, wasteful, very wasteful spending. Anyway, now 5 more bodies are have been retrieved from the quarry dump site in Mukwenjenga, and they were all tied in sacks similarly, and there were fears that the number would rise as the search went on by to like 2 p.m., 2:30 p.m., and the crowd gathered at the scene to have a glimpse of the development amid tension. Detectives from the homicide unit DCI headquarters oversaw the exercise as they pleaded for patience to unravel the truth. Police said they are investigating the deaths and dumping of the bodies at the site, which was a quarry and was now being used as a dump site. Anyway, apart from that, Jeff, I saw a news here on where is it? On Nation about Raila. Yes, here it is. Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga has defended his push for national dialogue, saying it will be a national conversation of the people and not an avenue for sharing cabinet positions. And had pressed by leaders from the opposition to abandon the multi-sectoral forum, saying it is a trap laid by President Ruto. Mr. Odinga maintained that it will be a people-led national dialogue and not between him and the head of state. Do you think former prime minister is trying to take advantage of the current situation, or what?
I think the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga always finds himself at crossroads time and time again. But we know him as a cat of 9 lives, so he always survives one political tragedy to another. When you think he's done, he always emerges with
Mm,
a plan. When Ruto came, it looked highly unlikely for him to ever mend fences. They were arch nemesis. They were not seeing eye
mm,
to eye. But this guy has just a way of surviving in politics with his worst of enemies. He just has a way of finding himself into the political matrimonial bed. And he knows how to break political marriages. Unfortunately, he's that side chick who never wants to be a side chick. He always wants to be the main chick in every other political marriage. He breaks political marriages in this country in a clever
mm,
way. And somehow even see the political marriage between Gachagua and Ruto, it looks like it's falling apart. Who is to mention the side chick again? Raila. Back to your question about Raila coming into the picture. I think the old man right now is finding himself in turbulent and murky waters. I gave a quote from Achino Achebe talking about the fly that follows the corpse to the grave.
mm,
Uh,
mm.
Raila has found himself
So,
in that position
mhm.
severally.
Actually, the proverb is it's only a foolish fly that follows the corpse into the.
You're making it
Oh.
worse. You're making it worse. I think a fly was bad already. Now to say a foolish fly is even worse. But you see,
I didn't.
that proverb from Chido Achebe, defines Raila in so many ways. Remember 2022 elections. The guy decided to carry the burdens of Uhuru and his atrocities and the mistakes of Jubilee government on his shoulder. And I think that is
Mm,
one of the things why he lost the general elections. He carried the sins of Uhuru on his back. We knew Raila to be a defender of the people, of the population, of the masses. But because of his own political ambitions, and Uhuru had promised to uh, to what we call it, to endorse him in the forthcoming election 2022, he decided to bite the bullet for Uhuru. What did Ruto do?
mm,
Ruto decided to change cards and use you know the criticism of the government, which Raila is known for. The public likes him criticizing the government, and that is what sold Ruto into power. Raila in 2022 decided to follow the corpse to the grave, and he was buried with Uhuru in those political graves.
mm,
Unfortunately, this guy does not stay in the grave. He rises up to follow up another corpse. Now you see, Gen Zs are taking Ruto down. Ruto looks like somebody who is cornered, his cabinet is gone. People are resigning from his government. International bodies are giving him pressure. He's in bad limelight. He's on Al Jazeera. He's on CNN. He's on Sky News. He's on every other global media house right now for the wrong
Yeah,
reasons.
Kenya is currently naked before the nations.
Yes, Kenya is really naked. It's pants down at the moment, and the president is in bad light. I think Raila, this was the time for him to distance himself from this naked government and look like the voice that the country is looking for at this moment. But he cannot do that at the moment. Why? Because again of
Mm.
his political ambition. He knows that Ruto at the moment is besieged and is on his deathbed, but he knows that he needs the endorsement of the Kenyan government to the AUC chairman position. Without the backing of the national government, he cannot get that title. So he's ready to shoulder and to carry the ills, the atrocities of this government. He has not spoken about the extrajudicial killings the way we know he should be. We know how Raila speaks out against injustices. He has not done so. What happened? We saw him signing IEBC Act at KICC. It's not a priority at the moment. People are talking about finance bill. People are talking about government spending. They're trying to deviate our attention by going to KICC, laying a red carpet to talk about IEBC Act or whatever. And then not so after that, they do another press conference, talk about something called broad-based government, which of course I'd mentioned earlier. What is this broad-based government? Is it a genuine concern? Is it a government of national unity? Is it a government of convenience? Is it a power sharing coalition? We remember Raila is also known for cutting deals for himself. Why are we seeing people the likes of Joe emerging from darkness? Juneta suddenly emerged from political oblivion. They're right now everywhere on news, on press briefings. So we are seeing a situation where the old man is, sorry to say, is taking advantage of the situations to further his own political ambitions. I think right now what is pushing him the most is the AUC position. He needs the backing of the president. Well, it's costly to campaign for the AUC chairmanship because he needs to travel to every other African country to seek
Mm.
endorsements of the president. So his biggest consolation will be to work with President Ruto to get the endorsement of the Kenyan government, to get budgets from the Kenyan government to fund his political campaigns. But remember, even as he pursues his AUC chairmanship positions, God help him to get it. If he doesn't get him, then he goes with the corpse to the graves.